Hello, everyone. This is Ben Marchman from NatureLink, and I want to welcome you to the FireKeepers Global Summit, in which we'll gather for powerful conversations with cutting-edge experts and thought leaders who will guide you to connect to your truest self and activate your natural gifts. This event is designed to reinstate the importance of carrying our soul-directed vision back into our communities so that ourselves and our communities will flourish. Here you're invited to learn how to seek the guidance of your inner voice so you can truly understand what it means to live life with purpose. I'm really excited today to be talking with Aurora Farber. She is a feminine leadership coach, a spiritual guide, writer, speaker, and modern day priestess who is on a mission to help women ignite their feminine fire, the three flames of power, love, and wisdom that are key to awakening the new feminine evolutionary consciousness that will heal our world. Excuse me. She helps women burn away limiting beliefs and aligns with their feminine moon rhythm and embody their mythic purpose in the world. Aurora holds honors degrees in literature and foreign language, along with a professional certification in coaching. She is a priestess, initiate of the 13 Moon Mystery School, and as a temple guide mentor of the Priestess Presence Temple. She mentors women in how to create sacred space and become temple guides in their communities. She is also a co-author of 3 books and the new Feminine Evolutionary series, The New Feminine Evolutionary. Also author of the book Pioneering the Path to Prosperity and the book and Sacred Body Wisdom. She is also a featured writer and artist in the upcoming book, Voices of the Avalonian Priestess. So, Aurora, other than that background, she uses a lot of her private coaching and online programs, women's circles, and retreats that she uses to create sacred spaces for women to be held, witnessed, and loved as they are right here and now. Her guiding vision is a world of women claiming their creative powers, loving their body temples, and being beacons of fierce wisdom as they burn away archaic, limiting beliefs and light the world on fire with love. I love that piece. And we can go more into the so many other things Aurora is up to. But I'm really excited to be talking with you, Aurora, about your topic, tending the fire of Hestia's heart and Hearth, and reawakening the priestess archetype to ignite our soul purpose and heal our world.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you. And I'm so delighted to be here. Part of my mission is to create sacred spaces where we can be seen, be known, be fully expressed. And opportunities like this to speak with you, who's created this magnificent summit for people to gather, share their wisdom, and offer their wisdom to the world. I'm just deeply grateful. And I'm deeply grateful for our audience who's listening right now and who's made time in this busy world to come back to a point of stillness, a point of remembrance, and a point of being here in the moment. And so I'd love to start us off with that, just to take a few moments to connect to ourselves, if that's okay with you.
Perfect.
Sound good? Okay. So I just invite you and our audience to take a moment. You can put your feet on the floor if you like, and just feel your feet on the floor, your seat on whatever you're sitting on, and close your eyes and just gently connect to your breath. Just noticing that cyclical rhythm of the inhale and the inspiration and the exhale and the exhalation. This natural way in which we take in and receive and we let go. This rhythm that's connected to our breath, that's connected to the cycles of nature, that's connected to the way that we are meant to live in the world. And at any time, you can just connect to your breath to remember how to live and how to be in the world and in the present moment. And so with that breath, just breathing it in and feel the air filling up your lungs with that breath, expanding and warming that central part of your body, that heart light, right in front of the lungs, almost as though the lungs, with every breath, are gently caressing and wrapping themselves around your heart. Just allow the breath to heat that up. And now going down the spine, imagine that the spine is a column of light, the central channel. Allow that light to go down through your heart chakra, your third chakra, your second, your first, all the way to the root, and then down into the earth, down to Mother Earth, all the way through the earth and into the core of Mother Earth. And feeling that warmth, the heat, and the groundedness of being connected and tethered to Earth. As you breathe in, allow that color of red to come up, the richness of red that's in the blood, that's nourishing. Allow it to come up your spine, back up through those chakras and into your heart, where it mixes with your own blood, your own life force, sending that sense of groundedness and being held and supported of Mother Earth. And then from the back of your heart, going up through that central channel, go up through the sixth chakra, your voice, the fifth chakra, your voice, the sixth chakra, your intuition, and up through the crown of your head, and all the way into the cosmos to Father Sky. And feeling that cool blueness of the dark, the place where all mystery and all possibilities lie, where the stars that you are seated from are dancing in the mystery. And feel that golden light of starlight, of the remembrance of who you are. Allow that to enter the top of your head, down into your crown, igniting your intuition, igniting your voice and your truth, and down into your heart, that golden light, allowing it to mix with the red blood of Mother. Masculine and feminine together, swirling in that heart space until it turns into a beautiful, rosy, golden pink of heart opening and allowance, of giving and receiving. And with every breath that you take, imagine that you ignite that fire within, that you have the power and you have the capability of igniting the heart light of your own truth, of your own power, love, and wisdom. And that flame can burn away any limiting beliefs that stand in your way of holding the torch of being a firekeeper in this world. And so with every exhalation, you can breathe those limiting beliefs out with love and purpose and majesty. And so just breathing in a few more times, imagining that flame in the center of your heart with every breath growing brighter and stronger and more powerful. With every exhalation, letting go of anything that does not serve you and the world and your place in the world. And one final breath, connecting to that heart light, knowing that at any moment you can come back to that place, that you can come back and ignite your own fire that lies within, that's connected to Mother Earth and Father Sky. And breathing out, this time exhale and imagine this breath blowing out as love, power, and wisdom on a horizontal axis. So connecting your divine light that's held by Mother Earth and Father Sky, and now on a horizontal axis, allowing that light to illuminate in the back of your shoulders as though your wings are opening and spreading and emanating this force of love to others, to the community. It all starts right here in the heart, in connecting with your soul voice, with your soul direction, with your power and purpose, held in love by Mother Earth and Father Sky. And then with your will, your breath, your life force, your desire to change the world for the better, with every exhalation and with every act, small act of your soul-directed purpose, you can send that out into the world as love. So just taking one final breath, and if you feel called, you can put your hands to your heart and just take a moment to honor and bow to this amazing organ, this central part of this beautiful vessel that is your body, that houses the gifts that you are meant to give to the world. And just bowing to yourself and to one another, claiming your place by the fire. And so when you're ready, just kind of gently open your eyes, and we can connect heart to heart, soul to soul, wingtip to wingtip.
That was beautiful. Thank you so much. I hope that our listeners and our viewers are into this talk now and wanting to really connect and listen. Excuse me. Yeah, also into that, I was forgetting about the first question. So.
That's fine. I bow to that, Ben, because how often are we so busy that we're on our agenda? And so thank you for taking the time to just be in the moment. It takes a while to come. Even for me, I'm like coming back.
Yeah. So
but it's been nourishing, right?
Yeah, it is. And thank you for bringing us into that nurturing moment. And as one breath, as a group, I hope we'll be connected during our talk today, not just you and me, but everybody listening and viewing this. And I just want to, I guess, start, if there is an agenda. I'm not an agenda person either, which is fun. Yeah, and so like the first question, like the title of your talk makes me very curious as well, which is Tending the Fire of Hestia's Heart and Hearth, Reawakening the Priestess Archetype to Ignite her Soul Purpose and Heal the World. Just a common question probably that a lot of viewers and listeners are wondering, like, can you tell us why you chose that title and to share more about the archetypes and their roles as us being firekeepers in this world?
Yes, I'd love to. Well, I was so delighted to get your invitation. You had me at FireKeeper. And that's because fire as an element and as a guiding force in my life has really helped me find my purpose. And one of the archetypes that holds that for me is Hestia. Hestia, you may have heard her name, those of you listening, but you may not know her because she doesn't have a place. She's not like one of the big names of the Greek pantheon, right? She's not Aphrodite, the goddess of love, or Hera, the jealous queen, or Zeus, the almighty ruler, right? Hestia, who is Hestia? Well, the reason that she's not so well known is there weren't a lot of festivals dedicated to her. There weren't a lot of temples erected in her honor. There aren't that many that you can even find now. But what was true is that of all the gods and goddesses, she was probably the one who was worshipped the most because she was worshipped in daily living. Her temple was the hearth. So think back to thousands of years ago, the hearth really was the heart of the home. The hearth was where you gathered to cook your food. The hearth was where, when it was cold outside, you gathered together in community and family. The hearth was where you offered sacrifices to the divine so that you could have a connection with the divine. And it was in a time when we were more connected, when we didn't have so many agendas and so many shiny new objects vying for our attention. And we made that practice of first honoring the fire, of first honoring that divine spark. Every morning when women would go to cook, that was their first offering, was to Hestia, to be thankful for the light and the light and power of fire, to be able to feed and nourish themselves and their families. And in every community, Hestia was also honored, that there was a central pyre burning for her, because people knew that in order to sustain the well-being of the community, of their families, of themselves, they had to honor her. They gave the first portion of every offering to her. In our modern world, we don't, even in our meditation today, it was hard to just take that moment to set aside and be in devotion to something greater than our agenda, because we live in a world that tells us we need to do this, that, and the other. We have these massive to-do lists. And of course, that has its place. It's not that we're going to go back to how it was thousands of years ago. But there's this place, I believe, that this archetype of Hestia, this archetype of daily devotion to something greater than an agenda or something greater than the ego, to something greater like love, which is what I believe your summit is promoting, is community and love and that remembrance, that something greater is what's going to change and heal the world.
Beautiful. That was a very good description. I've known not as much as Hestia, of course, as you do, but I have heard some of that, and I love how you close that out with love and unity, because that is, that of course is, excuse me, my throat's been so dry today. The main action of this summit itself, but also a lot of us, like you're saying, we're stuck on the agenda, but we're forgetting about the archetypes that are already within inside of us, and how these archetypes, like you're saying, can bring out these gifts and tools that we already kind of have, like a reawakening of our natural gifts. And I guess that was kind of leading into the second question I have, which I guess we can keep expounding on this archetype. And I'm wondering if you wanted to explain a little bit. Most of our speakers, not our speakers, I'm sorry, our listeners and our viewers know what a priestess is, but some might not. And so wondering if you want to expound a little bit on the priestess archetype and how you use archetypes in your gifts and your tools to help people reawaken their natural gifts and find their soul purpose.
Yes, I'd love to. So long ago, the priest and the priestess, they were really the central holder of the community. That's the place where you went for counsel, where you went for offerings, where you went for healing. And they, because of their role as being a bridge between the human and the divine, their connection of being able to be empty enough to receive the messages of the divine without ego, without agenda, in order to offer and support the community, they were very revered, right? So that archetype really held the community together. And so that's what inspired me to talk about this on your summit today, because we're talking a lot about, what can we do and how can we live our soul directed purpose in the world, and how does that inform and contribute to community and society, right? So this archetype of the priestess is ancient, 4,000 or 5,000 years old. So archetypes in and of themselves are collective patterns in consciousness. They're an energetic force, an energetic imprint. So for example, if I say the Great Mother or the Mother archetype and Mother Teresa, you can already feel like that. Of course, if I say Marilyn Monroe, you might not think Mother archetype, although she can definitely have traits of the Mother archetype, but you'd probably think Goddess of Love or the Goddess, right? Because there's already an imprint. You would think Aphrodite more than Hestia for Marilyn Monroe, right? So there's a way in which we already know that, because that story has been in existence for thousands of years. And what I love about archetypes is that they're an energetic force, and they're a renewable energetic force. So that's great, right? Sustainable. And if we can tap into that energy, we can draw on the energy of the archetype in order to help us move forward in the world. So going back to the priestess archetype, again, the priestess archetype holds that place of being a bridge between the human and the divine, the sacred and the mundane. And so in that archetype of Hestia, she really was the priestess archetype because she was a divine energy, but her devotion was into the daily life of nurturing and feeding the soul through community, through family. She was the goddess of home and the hearth and community and women and orphans who need a home. So she really was the goddess of sanctuary, right? Mm-hmm. So that energy of the priestess is so needed at this time because we have forgotten what it's like to be in community, and not really to be, but the importance of it, the essential aspect of it in order to really nourish our soul. So that's what I would say about the priestess archetype, is that it is an collective pattern of consciousness that's ancient, that we can tap into. And why we want to tap into that priest or priestess, because I work with women mostly, but for men, it's the same. It's that aspect of the priest, you could say, archetype that's connected to the divine and the human. So that helps us to be more connected to the divine. And why I think that's important to talk about on your summit specifically is you're wanting to help people to tap into their soul purpose. And how do you find your soul purpose? Is by listening in. You know, when I remember, and I'm sure our listeners and probably you too, you graduate from high school or college and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? What am I going to be when I grow up, right? And you attend seminars or you take classes and you look in books. I remember looking in, what's that book? What Color is My Parachute? Do you remember that? Yeah. So we're always kind of looking outside to find, and that's part of our evolution as humans. And then, you know, we find something, it informs our life, it shapes our life in a certain way. But I think that once you hit 40, you know, Carl Jung said that our life is like, it's like the sun that rises and then it sets. And when it rises up to that apex, that peak around 40, we spend that whole first 40 years of our lives trying to figure out who we are and trying to fit in with society. And those last 40 years, or hopefully more, we come to that point, and that's where sometimes people have a midlife crisis, right? And we come to that point where we say, okay, what am I really here to do? And that doesn't require a book or a course or a teaching. What that requires is a stillness and a willing to listen and a willing to activate your intuition so that you can find that purpose. And that's what the priestess archetype offers, the gift of intuition, of remembrance, of stillness, of being connected to the divine and to our own human life.
Beautiful, beautiful. And I'm glad you clarified too, because people hear priestess and they think that's just women, the feminine side of it. Men, and I work a lot with men, and even in our men's circles, I have a past work in men's circles, and in quest work, you see this over and over again, like how these nature-based programs, like especially if you're doing rites of passage or a vision quest program, that for men to really grow, but to grow more internally, not really like grow as a person and like know a lot of things, but to grow internally, they have to embody that archetype. And like you kind of touch base on that, like our culture is so rigid on like, men can't cry, or a man can't voice their feelings or go more inward to embrace these archetypes. But it's so huge, especially for men too. So I just want to clarify that for our listeners and viewers. Like if you're a man watching this, to clue in and listen. Don't just turn off because this is about the feminine side, because it's not. It's just for all of us.
Right.
And I just see that over and over again, just relating to what you're discussing. And gosh, we could like go down so many rabbit holes on that one.
I have something to say about the masculine. Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah. You want me to say it now?
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, what I was going to say is, I thought it might be helpful for our listeners to hear a story of how this archetype awakened in me, like reawakened this priestess archetype, and how it ignited my own soul purpose. And that is where my story of the masculine comes in. So I wanted to tell the story of how it was about 10 years ago, actually, another decade, right? We're in a new decade. So in the other decade, I was a mom of a 6-year-old little girl and a 2-year-old son. And I was in that pattern of giving and giving. I was a mom. I loved being a mom, and I had been a mom for 6 years, but I was also really tired. Through that 6 years, I didn't take such good care of myself, because when I became a mom, I took it very seriously. And I, just gave all my energy to it. I just thought that's what I was supposed to do. But over those 6 years, I started to have a yearning for something more, but I didn't know what it was. With that yearning, I also felt guilt. I felt like, why isn't this enough? This is what you've always wanted, right? And so I was in this place of wanting this. It was like a push-pull of wanting to activate my soul's purpose, but I didn't know what the heck it was, and also feeling guilty. So the guilt would kind of keep me just stuck, right? So I had a dream one night, and in that dream, I'm riding a wheelchair like a skateboard. So if you can imagine, I'm standing on one leg on a wheelchair and I'm riding it like a skateboard. And I come to this party, this wonderful, fun party, and I'm there to meet people. And I see this man in the crowd, and he looks very important, and he looks famous or something. So I want to speak with him. I go up to him and talk to him. And as I'm talking to him, he's kind of looking over me. He's looking for someone more interesting than me, someone who could give him something, or someone who could add value. And inside of me in the dream, I felt like I was worthless. And so in the dream, I sank back down into my wheelchair and I wheeled myself out. When I wheeled myself out, I came into this baseball field, and there were people on the bases and everything, and they were all singing and clapping, and they were singing gospel music. And there was a woman there who I called Joy, and she was just singing. She was just so happy. She was overweight, and she was very happy, and she was very in the moment. And I felt embraced by her. So when I woke up, I knew that this was important. I knew it was talking to me about where I was in my life. I took it to my dream group, and I worked the dream with my dream group in community. And then as part of my work, I did some active imagination. And what that is guided writing, where I dialogued with the characters in my dream. And I had been used to doing that, but in this activity, I actually let them speak to each other. It was like a script. And it was really amazing what came out, because during that play, that dream play, I discovered that I had really been so in the joy part of me and the joy of being a mom, but it was also a heaviness, because I felt like this is what I had to do, even though I had a longing to do something more. But the fear of doing something more came represented in my shadow projection of Mr. Wig. That's what I call him, because he could put on a wig, he could fit in anywhere, because he had an agenda. And so I projected onto that character, if I step up more powerfully, then I'll become ruthless and uncaring and just selfish and egotistical. And it didn't jive with that other part of me that loved being a mom, loved being in the moment, right? And loved being with my family. And so what I did was, they were talking together and they said, well, how can we work together? We each have gifts. And they recognized the gift of the other, which was very powerful. And they said, I know, let's dance. And so Joy was like, oh yeah, baby, I can do that. And she started like dancing like this. And Mr. Rig was like, I'm not going to do that. He's very serious. He has a lot of structure. And so he said, I have an idea though. Let's tango. And so in the tango, they got up, he put his arms out, he held this rigid structure, and she, Joy, was able to flow and flip and dip and fly in her ecstasy. And after I wrote that out, I thought, this is the key. This is the key, is the integration and the balancing. It's the recognition and the honoring of my masculine and my feminine, and seeing how they can work together so that I can allow myself to dance in ecstasy in balance with these two parts of myself. So then I painted that picture, and in that image, 3/4 of the image is joy, and her dress is flames, it's red. And that's where the term feminine fire came to me. That's when I first thought of feminine fire. And feminine fire is part of, my brand and what I stand for. It's probably why you found me, since your summit's called FireKeepers, right? That came to me in a dream, and I began to claim it. I began to say, okay, I can do something more than being a mom, and it's okay, and I can still be a great mom. And so from that, the next breadcrumb, and that's what I would love to invite your listeners to think about, is that, when we're looking and listening, I love to say listening more for our soul purpose, sometimes it comes in breadcrumbs. It comes in little hints and gifts from the divine. So for me, after that dream, I decided to start a book club. I was a stay-at-home mom, but I found that there were other women just like me who wanted something more, but they didn't speak about it because they also felt guilty. And so together we formed a book club. We read a book called Creating Your Best Life. We began to create a bucket list of what we wanted to do, to begin to have bigger dreams and share it in community. And from that, I decided, okay, I've always wanted to be a coach. And during that time, I signed up for coaching school. I went through coaching school for a couple of years, got certified as a coach, all while being a mother. And then one time, and all this was when I was living in Shanghai, China. And while I was in coaching school, I was listening to a lot of seminars and, just advancing my education. And I loved it. It was so great to be using my, my mind again and less diaper changing. And so I felt like my life was balancing itself out. And during that time, I heard on the Shift Network, I heard of an offering called Finding Your Soul's Purpose or something like that. And I thought, okay, I'm on this path. Let me listen to it. And in that call, my current coach and mentor, Elaine Kalila Dowdy, she was one of the leaders of it. And she did a guided meditation. And in that meditation, I was gifted a necklace of a chalice. And the chalice is a symbol of the priestess. And so I was given that. And at that time in my life, I had been going through coaching school, and this was all for my career and all of that. But this course that she was offering wasn't really about coaching. Little did I know that my business now would be related to the priestess. So in a way it was a breadcrumb that I didn't recognize. But there was this part of me that so wanted to learn about the 13 Moon Mystery School, of which I'm a part of now. And that's what the offering was, to learn about these divine feminine archetypes. There was a part of me that wanted to do that. And the part of me that said, you can't do that because what's the return on investment? Like, how can you invest in something that's not going to pay you back, you can't justify? And I listened deeply, but there was this part of me that said, it just knew that I had to be a part of this course because I had to know, I had to be immersed in this knowledge, and that my soul direction was worth it, and it didn't have to be justified, and it didn't have to have a return on investment that could be proven. And I'm happy to say now that return on investment has been incredible. But had I been stuck in my logical mind and the way I was conditioned to think, just in kind of balancing things out and not listening to my intuition, I would have never even stepped on that path, and I wouldn't be speaking here with you today. And so I wanted to share that story with our listeners to say, as we're listening and activating that's one of the gifts of the priestess is intuition, right? And remembrance of who we are. Taking that time to be still, to connect with our breath, to slow down, and then to deeply listen and watch and listen for the breadcrumbs that fall on our path. And to take one up and say, maybe this is, check in, is this for me? Yes, this is for me. Because one of the things about our society right now is there's so much information. There's so many courses we can take. There's so many credentials we can get in order to fill our life purpose. And often that becomes a crutch why we don't show up, because I need to get that certification or this certification, or I'm not good enough yet, right? We're looking for justification outside of ourselves so that we can prove that we're worth it. But our soul is worth it. Our soul is worth it. There's nothing that needs to be proved. our mission, our soul is here on a mission, and allowing ourselves to open up, to be present to what that is, to follow that breadcrumb and take a chance. That's how you find your soul purpose. It's not through taking a course and go, oh, I'm this. Because we can be many things, many labels in our life, many careers, but what is our soul purpose? Like, why were we put here on the earth? One of the greatest questions I heard Richard Rudd, the author of the Gene Keys, say regarding purpose. He said, regarding purpose, ask yourself, what is the greatest gift I can offer in service to the world? And then to take that chance to really to let that knowing come from within, based on your gifts, your talents, your desires, what lights you up, what makes you angry, to allow that to rise up. And that's why you're here. That's why you're here, to offer that, to be a vessel of transformation of that in the world, and to leave a legacy of that in the world, an imprint of your soul here in the world. I'm getting hot talking about that. My fire is ignited.
I was very moved by that, and what a phenomenal story. That's just unbelievable. I love you. You just poetically painted this amazing story. That dream was so painted so vividly for me. And I like how you said at kind of the end there about following the breadcrumbs. Like, I like that metaphor. It just kind of reminds me of I want to say I was just recently reading, I think it was in one of David White's books, but I cannot remember which one it was. And he paints things so poetically as well, same as you. And mentioned something about following that path, and soul's leaving you this purpose and soul. He kind of listed it in one package, purpose and soul, like together, are leaving you like all these clues. But don't be surprised if the clues don't make any sense. It's like, so when you go out on a limb, it's not going to make any sense. And if it does make sense, I think you mentioned something like, if it does make sense, it'll be very funny or somewhat tragic. So those are very different, and so that could be really scary. But that's what going out on a limb is. Like, we embrace that fear of the unknown and just surrender, like you're saying. That's where the magic happens. It's kind of like going back to that culture, kind of, we were just mentioning culture earlier. Our culture is like, we're always asking ourselves these questions over and over again. We're always questioning. And like you were saying, like, it's not going to get you really that far. It was a Carl Jung, but later Joanna Macy kind of requoted it and would say, all of us are living life like trying to answer this one question, which could be like purpose, or what does my soul want me to do, or what I'm supposed to be doing in life. Those are usually the big questions. Is there a God, or is there these spirits? Whatever your big question is. And when you fall into the question of knowing the answer to the question, that then begins the day that you can live life with that question. So kind of like living into your question, like your journey and your whole life trying to answer the question. But when you do find the answer, it's not over. And then you get to live it. I love that.
Right.
And that's what life's all about. Like, it's just a process, but at the same time, when you find the big answer, which you're really lucky if you do, and most of us are, and some of us aren't, don't stop there. Like, live it, like embody that. Just kind of trying to expand a little bit on what you're saying, but that just reminded me of her quote. I think it was originally Carl Jung, but
well, in the Priestess path, one thing, the way we look at life really is as an initiation. I think this is what you're talking about. Is there's that place where we listen deeply, connected to source, and ask, what is our soul purpose? What is the greatest gift that I can give to the world, right? And along that path, there are initiations. Sometimes they are humorous, sometimes they are tragic, but they're all here to help us move forward in our evolution. They're all here to help polish our soul so that we can shine brighter. So that's one of the constructs that we're deconstructing at this moment, is the way in which we polarize the light and the dark, the good and the bad, this way in which we live in a dual consciousness rather than a unity consciousness. And in this priestess path is to look at all those things, even the shadowy, even the tragic, even the, fear places, as a place where our soul can get even more polished. And in the moment, it doesn't feel like that. It feels terrible. It feels frightening and scary. And that's also based on the way we've evolved, is we've been trained through even our ancestors that it's better to know what's ahead of you. It's better to know if that rustling sound in the bushes is a tiger or a squirrel. Like, you can be better prepared, right? And so this way in which the dark or the unknown has become fearful. And yet the truth is the future is the unknown. There is no way, even if there's a tiger in the bushes, that anything can happen. And so when you switch that paradigm and you think of the mystery or the unknown as something that holds the possibility of your magnificence, then it becomes something different. It becomes exciting. I was so inspired by, and I'm going to write for this later this year in another book I'm doing called Sovereign Unto Herself. It's about sovereignty. I was so inspired by this recent Disney movie called Frozen 2, with Elsa. There's a song in there called Into the Unknown. Have you seen this movie?
We have you and I were talking before the call. I have a 2-year-old, so we're in the middle of watching Frozen just about twice a day. So I can't wait for that.
Have you watched
Frozen 1? But we haven't gotten to 2 yet. But
to me, those two, now the Frozen has been a breadcrumb for me. The first Frozen for me, as how old was I, 40-something years old woman watching Frozen with my kids, helped me peel off that layer of being a perfect girl. She sings in that song, that perfect girl is gone, because she's so powerful, and yet she's afraid to take off her gloves because she's afraid she'll hurt someone. That defines a lot of the state of feminine energy and power right now. It has been suppressed for so many years, but now it's rising. And how do we take off our gloves and use our powers to create a new world? Well, in Frozen 2, I won't ruin it for you or for anyone, but basically it's about reclaiming our connection to the mother, reclaiming that knowing that in the darkness, that voice that's calling you, you have to watch it, Ben. You'll love it.
Will pretty soon.
That voice that's calling you is actually your soul that's connected to the divine, that holds your higher purpose. And that's what that movie is all about. And that's become my theme song of the year, is Into the Unknown. And it holds both that place in which, like you were saying, there's a part of us that can be terrified of the unknown, or we might have something we want to do, but we're afraid to do it because I've never done it before. I don't know if I'm qualified. It brings up all the shadows, right? And that initiates your soul to say, okay, here it is right in front of my face. What am I going to do with it? Now, even as a coach, I was trained to your saboteurs and all this stuff, to take those beliefs and slam it in a book or lock it in a drawer. I used to coach that way. But when I came onto this path, this more heart-opening path, now I know a way that's much more effective. And it's to take those beliefs and to hold them with love and tenderness and to say, where did this come from? Where did this belief, is it really mine? How can I love it? How can I hold it? And to bring it into the heart and let the flame of the heart transmute it. Because really, and this is what is so inspiring for those of you who are listening, if you are on this path of your purpose and you're facing those challenging times and your shadow is coming up, well, I've got news for you. In your shadow is your gift. In your shadow is your gift. Your deepest wound is your greatest gift. So for me, my shadow was about unworthiness. So what do I do now? I hold the torch to help women remember their feminine fire, to help them know that they're magnificent and marvelous. And how did I come to hold the torch is because I had to look at it in myself and I had to hold it. The more I shoved it away in a book or locked it in a drawer, it just grew stronger and wanted to get out and sabotage me. But as I came and put it to my heart and loved that part of me, recognized, where it came from, and that my soul, that was my ego, not my soul, not my essence. And when I allow my essence to come through, then I can hold the torch. And honestly, some days my ego gets the better of me, just like everybody. And it takes that moment of that priestess archetype. The mudra of the priestess is to hand right below your chest, and you pull down through the chakras saying, I am here now. And when I'm in those moments of ego and fear and all that, I have to come and pull myself into myself, pull my essence back into my body and say, I am here now and I am listening. I am listening. And then that is the seminal skill of this archetype of the priestess, is to be empty and to make decisions from that place of connection, to be a vessel of the divine, to make decisions from there. Because when we make decisions from the ego and from the fear and all the static inside, those actions have an agenda, and they're not, they can just cause more of this. Right? So I've kind of gone off on a tangent. I apologize.
That's the whole interview format. We call these interviews, but it's kind of more of an engaging conversation. I was just smiling because on your ego thing, how it goes everywhere. We had a participant, I want to say that was a couple quests ago, and he just came up with this. He was working a lot with ego, of course, and trying to re-embrace the feminine, as we're talking about. And he just had this little slogan. I mean, not slogan, this little saying, and it just stuck in my head. And I know, like, I use it with even my clients. He'd always say, ego, where did it go? And like, kind of like, because like he would get rid of his ego and then it'll come back. Like, and, like you're saying, we're all constantly on a journey to almost like you're saying, not really get rid of the ego, but just don't let it surface as much. So our soul and our essence can come above that and to integrate it. It's kind of like my Joy and Mr. Wig. That is the path of the priestess too, is the integration of the divine and the human. Our bodies need an ego. Yeah. We so often on the spiritual path, we think, oh, I need to get rid of my ego. And actually, that's the shadow of the priestess. The shadow of the priestess is being so caught up in being a vessel of the divine that she, or the priest, he forgets his duty as a human. And like Hestia, who was one of the 12 gods and goddesses of the pantheon, she gave up her seat to Dionysus. And she did it willingly because she didn't really care about sitting on the throne. She cared about being here on earth with the sacred flame. And so I love that story because it makes me remember that even though I love to spend time in the etheric and to, that loving meditation that we did in the beginning, I could stay there way longer, just because it's so nourishing. But I have to come back down to earth because my work is here on this planet. And I need my ego to partner with me to do that. So yeah, I love that. My ego, where did it go? Oh, there it is. Okay. You want to join me? How can we do this? Like Joy and Mr. Wig, how can we partner together and really create a beautiful dance of magic and mystery and possibility and change in our world? Yeah, exactly. We're not at the top of the hour yet, but I want to leave time for you to talk about some of your amazing programs. But I did have one more question. So we're at this time, everybody, of course, I'm sure a lot of the viewers, pretty sure, on this type of summit, that a lot of the viewers and the listeners are feeling this tension. We're in this new decade of 2020, and we have a lot of amazing astrology events coming this year as well. And people are feeling like this tension, all the way from politics to what's going on. Like I was talking with a speaker, what's going on in Australia right now, which is just so tragic, and the climate and our culture. And so at this time in like really human history, like why and almost like how, more of a how question, why and how do you think the priestess archetype is so important? Important, and how can we use it with initiation work and like our own intuition? Kind of a loaded question, kind of a two-step question.
Well, I love that question. And as you were talking, before our call, I was called to place, I have a chalice here on my desk. And when you were talking about that, I thought this is the tool of the priestess. So this is the how, right? How do we train our consciousness to be in a world that is so full of static, it's full of fire, it's full of fear, it's full of the unknown. Like, how can we enter into the unknown when all this is going around? How can we trust? How can we be a vessel and be open when the ground is shaky? And so I think about this tool of the chalice, and what I love about it is, a chalice is both something that can be filled, right? Mm-hmm. And it can be emptied. And so I invite you and our listeners to think about the chalice, that your body is the vessel of the chalice, that you are a holy temple, and at the center, your hearth is in your heart, tending that flame with the breath, with stillness, with taking time to listen in, right? And to think about the how of this is, how do we be in this world? Well, number one is to notice what is in your chalice, because the chalice is a tool that both amplifies whatever is in there. So if you're feeling fear and doubt and anxiety, and you watch more news and you have more discussions on this that amplifies it, you're going to amplify it. You're going to transmit that out of your body and into the world, right? So it can both transmit and it can receive. So what are you receiving? If you're feeling that way, what can you do in order to empty it out? Empty out that chalice and to be empty, because that's truly what we want, is to be an empty vessel so that we can serve. And if we really look at life as an initiation, all of these things that are happening in our world is an initiation. And it's terrible, and it's heart-wrenching to think of the people and the animals in Australia. It's heart-wrenching to think of just all the pain and suffering that's in our world today. And what can we do? Do we choose to amplify it with our own fear and with our own doubt? Or do we empty those out so we can be empty inside, and then refill ourselves with stillness, with trust, with centering, with our own essence? Listen in and say, okay, listen to our intuition and say, okay, what is it that I can do? And it can be a small act. It doesn't have to be a large act. It can be a large act. It can be something like putting on a summit like this that takes a lot of work and organization, or it can be just giving your child a hug in the morning and connecting heart to heart, energetically, not just that cursory hug with a pat on the back, but just taking the time to amplify love and set the world on fire with love through the vessel of your body, through the vessel of the holy temple of your chalice and of your heart.
Beautiful. That was a good summary. Yeah, and before we go into explaining more of one or a couple of your programs and your free gift, I was just wondering, since we're in this train of thought of that last question, is there any advice, guidance, or however you want to phrase it, for the listeners and the speakers there that you just want to leave us with? Something that we maybe didn't touch on, or expounding on something that we did?
Yes, I would love to. So with this priestess archetype, and the gift in the light qualities of the priestess, her gifts, I wanted to name 3 of them to leave as little breadcrumbs for everyone. So one is remembrance in that place of stillness. The mantra of the 13 Moon Mystery School for the Priestess is I amplify in stillness. I amplify in stillness. So often we think we have to do stuff and be busy in order to amplify our energy and our work in the world. But really, I amplify in stillness is a place to connect to your soul and listen. So remembrance, when you become still, so that would be my first thing, is to be still and to listen. And that way you can come into your own remembrance, right? The second is intuition. That's the gift of the priestess. So how are you listening to your intuition? It can come in many ways. It can come in symbols. It can come in, some people hear intuition, some people see it, some people feel it, they get chills. Some people just know it. So there's different kinds of intuition, like identify what is yours. My primary one is clairvoyance. So I see symbols, I work with dreams, images, and things like that. Learn to listen to that part and identify what that is. Begin to work with symbols that you receive, like follow the next steps of your breadcrumbs. And one of the best ways to do it is to use the moon and the seasonal cycles to manifest, because that's the way all life is created. That's the way women, through our bodies, we have a menstrual cycle that aligns with the phases of the moon, and even our ovulation aligns with the full moon. So we have a period of darkness, of the fertile void of the new moon, and then we come into ovulation, and then we come back down into the dark moon. It's that rhythm of the breath, of the in and the out, the ebb and the flow. And so if you want to manifest something in your life, you can use the seasons, the moon cycles, in order to create a sacred container, because often we have dreams and we don't give it a container. We don't have support, or we don't have a deadline. And so the dream just keeps meandering and it never comes into fruition. We never reach that full moon phase of our dream, and we never come to the harvest. And so by using, now we're in 2020, right? We're in a new decade, a new year. This is the time right now of the Great Mother. This is the time to really listen in. And so it's so timely that your summit's right now. It's the time to listen to what your seeds are for this next year and for this next decade. And you can think of that first 3 months of the year as the listening in. The spring equinox, that's the time of the sprouts coming in. What are they? What are you actually going to do and manifest in the world? The time of the summer solstice, that's when something has come and you celebrate it and you're in joy and you begin to tell people about it. And in the fall, you come into the place of the harvest. You're harvesting it, and you're also harvesting your wisdom. What did you learn? How did your soul grow? Then you go back into the winter again and let everything become still. That's where we're at right now, is in the stillness and in the listening and for watching for the seeds. So all those ways of working with cycles, journaling, using oracle cards, those are ways to amplify your intuition so that you can activate that second gift of the priestess, which is intuition. So remembrance, intuition, and then finally, I already talked about it, was the chalice. Remembering that you are the chalice, and to be conscious of what is coming into your chalice, and to be consciously dumping out any of the stuff that shouldn't be in there, because you don't want to amplify that.
Perfect. And not just for women, for men too.
Yes. I'm curious for you, Ben, how does that land for you, like as a man? What will you take away? Can I interview you for a minute?
Yeah, you're welcome to do that. Yeah, switching hats here. So, yeah, it took, just coming from a man's point of view, the ego, of course, overrides a lot, and, logical brain. And it really had maybe been 7 years ago where I really started practicing more of the feminine side, the embracing of, I love your chalice example. This, for me, it was more just surrendering, dropping things that weren't needed, and letting this essence and this new piece of me come to power. And then we kind of touched bases on it earlier. For me, it was, as a man, a lot of men are put in, and a lot of men who are probably watching this can relate to this, and you'll see it over and over again. We're put in like this man. My friend Boyson Thomas, he actually works with the Mankind Project. we'll say like men are put in this man box. Like we're kind of like, we're not alone, but we're put in this box of like, like we're saying that earlier, like we're not supposed to cry. It's like part of our culture.
Mm-hmm.
We're not supposed to show the feminine side of ourselves because we'll be labeled something. Like it's so like our culture is so out of whack. And if you can get outside that box, you'll realize that for me, like I always tell my clients too, and just tell myself that when you get outside that box, there's no corners. You have this circle, but that circle to me was community. And I knew that so much, but I was so into myself and into my box that I wasn't reaching out and having the men of the community not come in and help, but also the women and like getting guidance from women. And that was life-changing for me. And that was about a decade ago. And what helped me, especially in my trainings when I was in the past doing quest work, and just realizing that like, the women are extremely helpful just because, they really see you internally, but the men too, and like bringing men into this work. And so for me, was my kind of background and how I take that conversation is like every man is like kind of seeking that community, but they're afraid to voice it because they're going back to that man box thing. I'm just seeing this a lot in this men's circle that we do, especially. And it's so, and that's really all men need. Men just need, and coming from this conversation as well, like men just need other dudes and like bros or whatever you want to call them to just sit there and actually listen and when has a guy had another guy to just sit there and like talk to, another person won't say anything back. And that's what I think a lot of men need, if we're not really brought up with in our culture. I had that as parents, and I was fortunate to have great parents, but men need much more mentors than they think they do. And they need those mentors to just really listen and like see them as who they are, and to just, when they're leveraging those gifts, to just support. That's really what I'm really seeing in our culture. And of course that's happening all over, but I just really think we need more of that and a lot more, and men to embrace more of that feminine. We're in our world so right now is so masculine and needs more of that feminine. And you and I were talking before our talk about our last summit you were in, all about the feminine. And that was really moving to me to watch, and just seeing this movement of, we're in this stage where we're seeing all these amazing females come into action, like little Greta I think she's from Sweden. Is it Sweden?
Right. Yeah.
Like that's really inspiring to me as a man to see that. And I hope men watching this are taking note of our conversation as well. But I don't want to summarize your talk because that's not my role, but I'm really glad you actually asked me that. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. Well, I'm just deeply bowing to you, and I'm taking from this conversation that image of a circle that you offer men's circles, like you're providing a medicine to this man in a box with the corners, the sharp corners, that the circle is a feminine symbol. So you are holding that space for men. So thank you for doing that work in the world. Yeah,
and thank you. And it's definitely around here, if you live in Georgia, it's definitely one man at a time. It's we're getting there. It's more of maybe an octagon. No,
right. That's
we're
okay.
There, but that's what it takes. It's slow pace but it's powerful. It's powerful work. I guess not really the last question, but I did want to see if you wanted to talk about before your free gift, if you wanted to talk a little bit about like a minute or two about your Feminine Fire Sisterhood program. And then people
yes.
find your other your information about your books and your other programs on your website. But we talked a little bit about that, but I'm sure a lot of the listeners or viewers are really curious about it. Yes. Well, if this conversation has inspired you, I would love to just reach out to our audience and ask them to connect with me on Facebook or Instagram. You can find my information at aurorafarber.com. And as far as what I offer, the Feminine Fire Sisterhood is for women.
And it is a closed group. And what we do in that group, it's a place, it's a sacred space, really. It's free, and you can come on in. And what I say is, it's my calling out to women to come and claim their place by the fire, to share their love and to shine their light. And it's a place, like you said, to be witnessed, to not be told what to do and how to do it, but to come in with your mess and your magnificence so that the sisterhood can cheer you on. Because, and I'm sure you find this with men too, like healing in community is so powerful. Even as my work as a coach working one-on-one, I love that. It's very transformative. And there's something about sisterhood and being in a group when you are, held and loved. And so this is my free group that I offer. I also talk a lot about the moon phases, so you can learn about that. Along with that, I have a free quiz called What's Your Feminine Lunar Archetype that you can discover where you are on the moon cycle power path, this path of tapping into your feminine rhythm of how to live your life, where you can ebb and flow, expand and contract like the moon, instead of always being overwhelmed and busy and in that solar masculine energy. So you can discover whether your archetype is a mother, queen, goddess, or sage. So that's a free offering. In addition to that, I do 13 moon mat oracle readings where I use the 13 moon mat with the 13 divine feminine archetypes. And it's a wonderful way, especially to start off the year, because you discover your primary archetype, your primary color frequency, your primary tool for the year, and what's needed to activate all that right now. It's an intuitive oracle. And right now you can see me, I'm dressed in my archetypal ally, and partly why I'm on the summit, because my ally this year is the Priestess. Surprise, surprise. And then beyond that, I do have one-on-one for those who really want to step in deeper and want to transform those shadows into, and those fears into the fuel that can amplify and get your message and your purpose out into the world. So you can connect with me about that and apply for my Ready to Rise program. That program is called Rise, this idea of rising like a lotus from the muck and the shadows, taking that energy, transmuting it so you can rise into the light and into the majesty of who you are. So there you have it.
It's so great. And those aren't even like your, and like people are wondering also, like underneath Aurora's on the speaker page, you'll also see your free gift, which we haven't touched base on. And would you want to expound a little bit on that? Well,
actually, that is the lunar archetype quiz. So that's the free gift. So if you want to go on and take that, once you sign up for that, you'll discover what your archetype is, what that shadow and the gifts of that, what are the challenges, what moon phase associated with it. And then you'll be receiving some emails from me talking about the 3 secrets of igniting your feminine fire, which includes like archetypal playlist, a meditational tool, a song that I recorded to help activate your feminine fire. So there's a bunch of little surprise gifts that come in to that, along with learning more about how to use the moon and the moon rhythm in order to activate that fire. And I was thinking, Ben, I wanted to read something that I'd written from my book, The New Feminine Evolutionary, that I'm a co-author in. And I think this could be a nice way to wrap up our call.
Sure, that'd be fantastic.
Okay, so this is really talking about what we were saying earlier about where we're at right now in our world consciousness, and about the new feminine evolutionary, which is really that divine feminine consciousness that's needed in men and women now to wake up. And so this chapter I wrote was really about my journey as a mother, is what helped me awaken that consciousness in me. So I wrote, the new feminine evolutionary inside of us is waiting to be born, needing to be born. Our world is crumbling, old structures and traditions falling, failing with the patriarchy fighting desperately for power once more. Our earth is crying, our children ravaged by war and disease, our brothers and sisters lost and afraid. We need a guide, a light to ignite the spark of hope again, a melody to lead us through the dark night and into the light of day. Something stirs in the darkness, like the lullabies that called my children into being. I hear a new birthing song. A song of hope, a song of sisters rising, a song of sisters reaching in to reach out and heal the world, a song of the heart reminding us of our own innate power, love, and wisdom, a sacred song guiding us from transition to crowning until at last we marvel at our own evolution, cradled gently in our arms, a song birthing the new feminine evolutionary into being. And this is that song. I'm going to sing it for you. My oracle cards told me that I was supposed to sing today, so I'm just listening to the breadcrumb. So, I am she who holds, I am she who is held, I am she who ignites the spark, I am she who tends the flame, I am she who stands in the fire. I am she, I am she, we are she, we are she is me, she is me. I am she, I am she.
Mm. Oh, I don't want to end that with too many other words. That was a great closer. And thank you so much for that. And for the men, remember you can sing that same song and use she. You have a she part of you
Yes.
as well. You don't have to change
And
it.
you can sing I am he.
Or I am he.
And women can sing that too, to integrate that masculine and feminine. Yes, it's the claiming, and that's, I guess, what I'd love to leave it with, is sisters and brothers there with your heart light lit now, I hope. Claim your purpose in the world, even though you don't know what it is. Look for the breadcrumbs. Seek support. Create sacred spaces where you can allow your light to shine, because it's needed. It is so needed. And together, my light shining, your light shining, we are going to set the world on fire with love.
Mm. Beautiful. Well, I think we'll end with that one then. Thank you so much, Aurora. And I just really appreciate you speaking from the heart today. And I hope our listeners and our viewers, of course, will come out from this video and not exactly taking action, but just really listening to their heart from this and following the breadcrumbs.
Yes.
I really, really appreciate today. So have a great day and take care.
Thank you. You too. Blessings.
Many blessings.